Hi, I'm Rosenberg, the CEO and Chief Scientist of Unanimous AI. And we're a very different type of AI company. While most folks are out there trying to replace people with algorithms, we use AI to connect groups of people together and make them significantly smarter. And so let me share my screen. And today I'm going to be talking about using AI to amplify human intelligence. And so a quick outline of what we'll be talking about today. I'm going to start off by talking about Swarm AI, which is a technology that we've been developing for the last 7 years here at Unanimous AI. And it's based on the biological principle of swarm intelligence, which I'll talk about. And it uses AI to amplify the intelligence of human groups. Then I'll talk about some validation studies that were done with major universities, MIT, Oxford, Stanford, that demonstrates that Swarm AI can connect groups of people together and make them significantly smarter as groups. And then finally, I'll talk about some applications that Fortune 500 companies are doing using Swarm AI, wide range of things, financial forecasting, sales forecasting, sports handicapping, equity speculation. Hedge funds use Swarm AI to make better predictions of the market, even medical diagnosis. And I'll talk about that. And then we'll do a question and answer and hopefully answer any questions that come up. So let me start off with a very controversial statement in the world of AI, namely that people are smart. Everybody who's listening to this presentation right now has a massive amount of information in their heads, knowledge, wisdom, insight, experience, intuition, instincts. And in fact, most AI systems don't access this human database that's out there. And that really is what inspired us to found Unanimous AI all those years ago. And we asked ourselves this question, well, how can we best harness and amplify the intelligence of human groups? And like a lot of technologies, we started by asking ourselves, well, how does nature do it? And it turns out nature has been solving this problem for hundreds of millions of years across many different species. And so if you think about a school of fish might be 1,000 fish. And each one of those individuals has a slightly different view of the world, slightly different experiences over time, slightly different personality. And yet somehow they're able to combine the opinions and views of all these different individuals and allow this school of fish to navigate the ocean as a superorganism that can survive significantly better than any one of the individuals could alone and can make really good decisions about its environment. So how does nature do this? Well, what nature does not do is nature does not take votes or polls or surveys. Nature also doesn't analyze big historical data sets. There's no big data, no machine learning in nature. Nature forms systems, real-time systems with feedback loops that enable groups to converge on optimal solutions. And biologists call this swarm intelligence. And it's the reason why birds flock and fish school and bees swarm. They are significantly smarter together than alone. And so if birds and bees and fish can get smarter in real-time swarms, why can't people do it? And it turns out that we can with the right technology. And so this image here is a natural swarm. And over the last 6-7 years, my team at Unanimous AI has been studying natural swarms and developing the algorithms and interfaces that allow humans to form similar swarms online. And so this is an artificial swarm. Each of those little yellow magnets you see is controlled by a person that can be logged in from anywhere around the world. And they control those magnets using a mouse or a touch screen or their phone. And what they're doing is they're pulling on that glass puck, and everybody is pushing and pulling on this system. And so what's happening is a question gets asked. In this case, it's a financial question. They're actually forecasting the likelihood that the S&P 500 will increase over the next 5 days. And everybody's moving their magnets to pull on this puck. And then there are AI algorithms that are watching everybody's behaviors in real time and determining how the swarm should move. And so a swarm is a real-time system with participants acting and reacting and interacting, revealing the strength of their convictions to these underlying AI algorithms. And so what's important to know is that what you see when you're participating in a swarm are these magnets in the swarm. It's very simple to understand. What the AI sees is a cloud of behaviors that is changing in real time. And that's what we call swarm AI. It's the algorithms that are working behind the scenes in real time, analyzing these real-time human sentiments and finding the optimal combination of the group's wisdom based on their varying confidence, allowing the group to converge on a solution. And so swarm AI at the highest level can be described as follows. You start with a networked human group. Those people could be anywhere in the world, could be 10 people, could be 2,000 people. The important part is that this group of people has knowledge and wisdom and insight and experience about some topic. You're going to connect those people together with AI algorithms that are modeled on swarms in nature. And you're going to turn them into an artificial expert that you can then ask questions to and generate significantly more accurate forecasts, estimations, assessments, decisions, predictions, insights. Question is, does it work? And so let me review some academic studies that have been done recently. We partnered with some researchers at MIT to look at the use of swarm AI to amplify the intelligence of financial teams. And so we had groups of financial traders who would predict the price of gold, the price of oil, and the S&P 500 every week for 20 consecutive weeks. They made these predictions alone. They made these predictions also by taking just a majority vote. People would refer to that as the wisdom of crowds. And then they made these predictions as a real-time swarm intelligence connected by AI algorithms. And the published study demonstrated that when they worked together as a swarm, we amplified their accuracy by 26% compared to the other methods. I should mention that this and all the papers I'll talk about are available on our website at unanimous.ai. And so again, this study showed that connecting people together as swarms enabled these significantly more accurate financial forecasts. We also published a study a year ago with Stanford Medical School. And here they had groups of radiologists who would log in to our software platform called Swarm and work together to make diagnoses. In this case, they were diagnosing chest X-rays for the presence of pneumonia. And so what would happen is chest X-ray would pop up on all their screens, then they'd work together as a swarm to determine the likelihood that the patient has pneumonia. They did this forecast, this diagnosis alone. They also did it as a majority vote, which you'd call wisdom of crowds, and they also did it as a swarm. And what the published study, and this study was published in the journal Nature Digital Medicine, what the published study showed was that when working together as a swarm, these small groups of doctors reduced their diagnostic errors by 33% as compared to their traditional methods. So again, really significant amplification of intelligence. We also published a study with some researchers at Oxford University looking at predicting sports. And this is an example where instead of using experts, financial experts, medical experts, we just used regular sports fans, people who we found over the internet who just self-identified as sports fans, and we had them predict, in this case, it was people in England, and we were predicting Premier League football. And so this study looked at predicting 50 consecutive games. Again, they predicted as individuals, they predicted as majority vote, and they predicted using Swarm AI. As individuals, they were 55% accurate, which doesn't sound that good, but predicting, basically predicting soccer games is hard because there's three outcomes: win, lose, or tie. And so 55% accuracy shows that this group of just regular sports fans had some group intelligence or individual intelligence. When they worked together as a group, as a majority vote, they increased their accuracy to 58%, which again shows that wisdom of crowds works. You can get a little bit smarter as a group. But when they work together as a swarm, Swarm AI, they were 72% accurate. So again, significant amplification of intelligence over traditional methods. And then finally, we also published a study last year with California Polytechnic, where they looked at business teams. In this case, it was 60 business teams in this study. Each team only had 5 or 6 people, and each team was given a standard subjective judgment test. This is a standardized test that's used in lots of academic studies, and they did it alone. They did it by taking a group vote, and they did it by working as a swarm. When they took this test as a vote, they reduced their errors by 9% compared to working as individuals. When they worked as a swarm AI, they reduced the errors by 52% as compared to working as individuals. So again, really significant improvement in group intelligence. Now, let me give a real world example so you can get a sense of how this actually works. How do teams actually use swarm AI in practice? And so at Unanimous, we often take on challenges from journalists. For a few years in a row, we took on a challenge from Newsweek to predict the Oscars. And so Newsweek asked us to use just regular movie fans to predict the Oscars. We would connect them together as a swarm. We'd give the predictions to Newsweek, and then they would publish our predictions, which put a lot of pressure on us to have good results. The way this worked is really pretty simple. We identified just 50 people who were just movie fans over the internet. These are people who could just pay $1 to participate for 10, 15 minutes in this prediction study. We had these 50 people, and we invited them into our software platform called Swarm. All they need to participate is just a standard browser. Each of these participants just got an invitation by email or text or calendar link. You can also send people a Slack message, and that will just invite them into Swarm. And when they enter Swarm, they will see a workspace that looks something like this, where there's an area where there's just standard chat happening, and usually there's a moderator who's going to ask the questions to the swarm. The moderator can communicate with the group in chat, telling them what they're going to answer questions about, give them context. There's also an area where the moderator can share media, pictures, videos. They didn't need to do that for this study. There's an area where participants in the swarm can see who's present. But the important area is this swarming area. And very often people will just zoom in on the swarming area, and it looks like this. And the important thing to know here is that the swarming area is where the moderator can ask questions and send it out to the group. And so a moderator asks a question, and it appears on everybody's screen at the same time. And so in this case, they're forecasting the Oscars. And so the question pops up, which film is most likely to win Best Picture? At the same time, answer options appear. In this case, there's the 6 films that were up for Best Picture. And then each participant has the ability to control a magnet with their mouse or a touch screen or their phone. And they just use their mouse to move the magnet next to this glass puck, and that's how they pull on the puck. But everybody is doing that at the exact same time. And so this is what it looks like when 50 people connected over the internet are all pushing and pulling on this puck to answer the question together in real time. And again, I should mention that as they're behaving, as they're pushing and pulling, AI algorithms are watching all of their behaviors and allowing them to converge on a solution. In this case, they predicted Shape of Water. And as you can imagine, they then went and we asked them all the questions for the Oscars to predict all the major categories. And we gave them to Newsweek. Newsweek published their predictions, and the question is, well, how did they do? And they did very, very well. And so the swarm of just 50 regular movie fans were 94% accurate in predicting the Oscars. They outperformed the predictions published by Variety magazine, the LA Times, Vanity Fair, which were all done by super experts. They also outperformed Gold Derby, which is a large crowdsourcing site where tens of thousands of people just cast their predictions on a survey, and it gets aggregated. And we see that again and again a swarm of a small group, in this case, just 50 people, can significantly outperform a large just crowd aggregation. Also outperformed Bovada, which is a Vegas betting market, and outperformed Rolling Stone. And so the question is, well, why does it work so well? And a good way to answer that question is to just think about this as a system. And so there's a front end, the swarm interface, which is what people see. Very, very easy for them to understand. What's important is at the same time, there's this AI engine, this cloud backend that's looking at everybody's behaviors in real time. And it's a system, meaning as soon as the question pops up on everybody's screen, they behave, they react. And as soon as they behave, the AI algorithms will look at their behaviors and determine their varying levels of confidence and conviction and cause the swarm to start to move. But as soon as the swarm starts to move, everybody reacts, they change their behaviors. And so it's this feedback loop where the people influence the AI, and then the AI influences the people, and they converge together on solutions that are an optimized combination of their knowledge and wisdom and insight and intuition. And so the swarm AI technology makes teams smarter. It allows them to generate these optimized forecasts and decisions and evaluations and predictions. And really any place where you have a group of people who have some level of knowledge about a topic, you can significantly amplify their intelligence. And we see businesses of all kinds using swarm AI. We kind of see it in two different categories. Businesses use swarm AI to amplify the intelligence of internal teams, sales teams, marketing teams, engineering teams, HR teams, making hiring decisions, engineering teams predicting how long things will take, how expensive things are. So there's internal teams, but then we also see it among external teams. We have lots of businesses using swarm AI to amplify the intelligence of their customers, their distributors, influencers in their market, analysts. And so you could imagine lots and lots of applications. These are some of the companies currently using swarm AI out there in the world. Can't talk about most of them because their work is confidential, but I can talk about a few. And one of the most interesting ones is actually the United Nations. And so the United Nations has been using swarm AI for about a year now, and they use it for a really interesting application, which is to predict famines around the world. And so there's a group within the United Nations called the Food and Agriculture Organization, or FAO, and they have a group of experts, about 20 people, called the IPC, and they predict the food insecurity risk of various nations around the world. And this is a high stakes forecast where, based on this assessment, relief agencies decide how to provide critical aid to various nations. And so they've been using Swarm to do this. And the way they do this is they have about 20 participants. These people can be anywhere in the world. And in fact, when the United Nations does this, they've had participants in 10 different countries, all connecting together remotely. And what happens is they'll make an assessment about various nations, and they're making an assessment on a scale of 1 to 5, from predicting food abundance to likely famine in the next 18 months. And they will converge together on solutions. Now, their traditional method would be to have a group, basically a group meeting or a group conference call, and discuss it and argue about it. And what they found is when they use Swarm AI, they get the same results, but much, much faster, and they get substantially more buy-in from the participants. And part of the reason for that is that in a swarm, everybody is equal and everybody is anonymous. And so they feel free to give their opinions openly and honestly. And they also feel like they have a better sense of how the group converged on the solution. And so, closing thoughts, Swarm AI is a method where you have networked human groups who have knowledge and wisdom and insights. You can connect them together, turn them into an artificial expert that you could then ask questions to, and generate more accurate forecasts and estimations and assessments about almost any topic. And a way to look at Swarm AI is that it optimizes the combined knowledge and wisdom and insight of human groups. It amplifies the accuracy of forecasts and assessments and decisions. It speeds deliberation, enabling groups to generate faster assessments than traditional methods. It reduces social barriers because everybody's equal, everybody's anonymous. They feel empowered to give honest opinions. It promotes buy-in from the participants if it's an internal team. And so that is Swarm AI. I'm sure you have lots of questions. Here's my contact information, and happy to answer whatever I can.